stay. Huh? No.
Hello lads, ladies, gents, ladettes, whoever, whatever, welcome back to another video. To break up just being remakes of the original run of Taking Out the Trash, I thought I would throw another game in here in order to spice things up. So, as you can tell, we're going to be looking at Redfall, more like Red Fail. Releasing in the first half of 2023, this almost Left 4 Dead meets Borderlands type shooter from Arcane Studios that was published by Bethesda was on track to be one of the more important releases from Xbox, only to release to possibly one of the worst launches outside of another Bethesda title, Fallout 76. We call that foreshadowing. But is it still a buggy, unplayable mess? It's been out for nearly a year at the point of recording this, and they've had time to patch the game to make it better. So it would want to be, because outside of the fact that the game costs $120 fucking for the base game, with its digital deluxe version costing a mind-boggling $165, or for you Americans, $3 whole freedom dollars. There is no way in hell I'm paying that kind of money for a game, especially for just this little video. Thank God for Game Pass. Like we did with the Alien Colonial Marines video, let's start with the good. I would say the overall sound design, voice acting, and general ambience is really well done. I found myself, while playing alone, to end up being a little bit paranoid when enemies are about, while exploring houses, the boatyard, and especially the hospital. Though some of these lines from enemies can be a little bit cheesy and edgelordy, I wouldn't hold it against the actors, as they did what they could with what they had. I did find that they did a good enough job to give certain types of vampires their own personality, so they're more than just reskins of each other. Speaking of the vampires, although they do have their issues we'll get to later on, there are a few varieties of them here, meaning the player will need to approach most of these fights in a relatively unique way. As they can be anywhere in the world map, this means the level design actually affects combat, which is a nice thing. Another good thing the game has going for it, and it's probably the best point, and that's just me being biased as a musician, is this game's music. Though I can understand where some might dislike it, as for me, it's a huge plus. It really reminds me of the Blade movies, and with the game being what it is, I think it'd be safe to say it's probably had some inspiration from the Daywalker himself. I also really enjoyed the setting of Redfall. Though it's not perfect, as I think the map could have been a little bit bigger for what it is, I think it does a pretty good job of creating that small coastal touristy town feel. The general visual design and aesthetic of the game, though subjective, in my opinion is pretty decent and it's well presented enough. Outside of the odd texture pop in and low res texture that would happen when you would aim down sights with a sniper rifle, the game's visuals were pretty solid, and it definitely has that arcane touch to the visuals, as you can see some of their previous titles like Dishonored within Redfall. The game's performance is also much improved from its original state. I only ran into a single crash in my entire time with the game, and that's something I wouldn't even fault the game for. I do think it's worth mentioning just in case, however, I do think it's my fault as I was messing around with my recording software. Getting into the just okay parts of the game, this is where the majority of it seems to sit for me. From the characters to the gameplay itself, it doesn't do anything mind-blowing or revolutionary. It wants to be a looter shooter, but not having enemies drop weapons like you would expect, and only allowing you to find them in crates seems like a missed opportunity, since the human enemies just sort of end up being there. With the exception of snipers, most of them are non-issues and really are just there as fodder to distract you from the main threat, the vampires. And I'm saying it now, the vampires don't help save the combat. Granted, some of them are okay and fun to fight, but for the most part, they're just there as well. Especially a lot of those early ones, they become fodder as well, because Arcane managed to make a game where it feels like there are too many enemies yet not enough at any given time. And I know that's a strange thing to say, but bear with me while I explain. You'll kill dozens of vampires throughout a playthrough, and it gets to a point where the basic vampires are no different to mere humans. And although some vampires can be seen roaming around a little bit more than humans, every enemy group or cluster will typically stick to their own little intersection. They're all tucked away in their own little corner, making a lot of these combat interactions be nothing more than just individual battles. It makes the game lose a lot of its urgency and fear of what could sneak up on you, meaning it's pretty rare to get blindsided. Maybe a few times for sure. Not saying it didn't happen to me, but for the most part, enemies, their movements, locations, and actions are all really damn predictable, making it way too easy to avoid just about any fight in the game. The game's exploration itself is pretty decent upon an initial run through, however, once you've unlocked all the waypoints and safe houses, you have no reason to explore anymore since you can just fast travel, which is sad because the initial start of the game is pretty good. I really enjoyed getting sidetracked, finding my way into houses, looting, because I had no supplies, I was low leveled, and I didn't have any good gear. But after 5 hours, I was pretty much all set, and looting killing and everything else just became a side thought. I think the game is a little too fast paced in terms of its reward system than it needed to be. Not that you shouldn't reward players, but I think they were a little bit too generous. Although in saying that, I'm sure someone would complain that the game would be too grindy if that was the case, so who knows, you can't really win with gamers these days. And now for the bad. The first major issue you'll encounter is this game's AI. It's average at best and abysmal at its worst. Both human and vampire enemies have no real sense of awareness and lack any ability to adapt to a fight other than just hide and pop out. It isn't to say every game needs god tier AI by any means, but they never try to outmaneuver you and they basically all play the same. Cultists or bellwether security, they all fight the same. Even the vampires, once you fought one of a specific type, you have fought them all. They're not really going to evolve here, and it really sucks. Even the boss fights do fall a little bit flat. Although visually cool, functionally, they're pretty boring. Another low point is this game's mission and storytelling. And even though I think the environmental storytelling to be somewhat alright and in certain locations extremely strong, the game just doesn't flow very well. The decision to break missions up into smaller mission instances, although better for groups of friends to play for 30 minutes to an hour, means that people who want to play solo aren't going to have a great time. You're going to be relying on the fast travel system just to bounce back and forth all the time. It's really annoying. And with all this said, what is the worst thing about Redfall? The fucking screen pop up for every time you finish a mission. Since I never played the game before, I had the tutorial screens on. Little did I know that this would cause me a massive fucking headache as I can't see a third of the goddamn screen in the middle of a goddamn fight. You can't just hit the escape key to get rid of this stupid pop up either. You have to hold it for a couple seconds to get rid of it. I understand you want to make sure people have finished reading what they're doing, making sure people understand what you want them to do, and you don't want people to accidentally skip this shit. However, when I'm in the middle of a fucking fight and I am fighting for my goddamn life, let me just hit the button once to get rid of it. With all this said though, is Redfall still garbage? Not really. I know I complained a lot, especially at the end there, but it's a game that is definitely designed around multiplayer. And to give the game its credit, I didn't get to do this because I didn't have other friends who were using Game Pass at the time or anyone who owned the game outright. Not that I would know anyone who wants to spend that kind of money on a game anyway. Like Alien Colonial Marines, it is a middle-of-the-road type game, and with multiplayer being its main selling point, and that being something I didn't get to do, it made everything feel a little bit empty and sadly very surface level to me. If you can get it for really cheap, or you have Game Pass and your friends already have Game Pass as well, I'd say give it a go. And as long as you don't go in expecting anything like Left 4 Dead, there are worse experiences out there. It's not the worst game ever made, and I do think it's a 5 to 6 out of 10 on a good day. So with that, lads, ladies, gents, ladettes, whoever, whatever, it brings us to the end of another video. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Taking Out the Trash for Redfall. If you enjoyed the video, please consider hitting that like button. If you want to go that extra step, hit that subscribe button. If you want to go that extra mile, you can support me on Ko-fi from just $1 a month like these lovely people here. And with that said, I hope you guys stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.